Hi, I'm Rebecca, your Studio NPL film mentor, and welcome back to another film challenge. You remember the rules? Your film must be less than 2 minutes, and it must be family friendly. Today's prompt is, your character is enjoying social distancing until. The prompt again, your character is enjoying social distancing until. Okay, now let's move into image. We've talked before about shots, a variety of shots. And I want to remind you about the 3 most used shots is the close-up, which is a great way to show emotion from your character. We have the medium shot, which is another great way of showing your character's relationship with another character, or maybe your character's relationship with some subject. And the wide shot, which is a great way of showing your character's relationship with their environment or their setting. You might not realize how many shots go into a film, but a director usually changes the shot every 5 to 10 seconds. That's a lot of shots. So your task is to not use 2 shots in a row. So you're going to have to use a variety of shots in this one. Now sound. Sound is very important, but we're stressing on the image and the shots this time. Remember, the first films were silent films, and the sound they used was just music, or a live piano, or maybe a live band. So your task is to have no dialogue in this film. You can use music to help tell your story, but no dialogue. Let's move into story. A circular story is one that starts and ends in the same place, sometimes even the same image. Directors often do this to show how things have changed over the course of the film. Here are some examples of the first clip and the last clip of several movies. Kind of get an idea of how they're doing this. Your task is to try to create some symmetry or some visual connection in your first image and your last image in your film. Okay, have some fun, and I hope you send us your movies. You can hashtag Studio NPL or email them to studionplnashville@gmail.com.
start out, we measure the subject with the pen. And right now I'm just trying to get the width and height and how they're related to each other, so I can kind of make a box that the subject's going to fit in on the paper. It looks like it's slightly taller than it is wide, but more or less around the same length. Measure how wide and tall the head is and see how many times that head fits into the complete picture. This is how proportions work. You find a part of the figure or subject, whatever you're drawing. Make sure your arm is stretched out straight, and then get those proportions and then measure them out on your paper. It's kind of just a mapping out process. You should use pencil. I'm using pen only so that you can see it on the paper. I'm going to draw just kind of a circle for the head. I see that the neck is just a little bit more narrow than the head. And so then I look at the negative space where the head and the neck meet the shoulders, and then I'm kind of carving out the ears, which I included in the width of the head. So I'm just kind of, for the ears, I'm just kind of shaving away the other parts of the head. Attention to where I'm paying attention to where the shoulders are, and then just kind of following those lines down to where I've made my markers for the greatest width, which is where the hands are. And then still focusing on how it relates to the rest of the subject, making those arms the right width. Again, measuring to make sure how many times the head fits in there. I think it's about 2.5 times the head fits in the height of the entire figure. Also measuring where the chest lands, and it looks like it's just a little bit less than a head length. And then pay attention to where the feet kind of stick out in the back. A lot of people will just kind of draw feet the same size, but here it's foreshortened. So whenever you're drawing something that has parts of it kind of in space, in the distance, be sure to look at where those places fall in relation to the rest of the figure, because they'll be smaller than you would think. Measuring kind of where the eyes are in relation to the whole head. Eyes will usually be in the middle of the face, so I usually draw a line kind of right there. And then there's a little mark, so a wrinkle right there that I use to kind of mark the midway point between the eyes. And also the eyes are usually about, well, they're the same width, and there's usually about enough shape for an eye in the middle. But I would say that here it looks like the eyes are, in all, take up about 2/3 of the space, of that front space on the head. So it's all about kind of finding how much space there is on the sides, while also making sure there's enough space in between the eyes. And then just kind of get those basic shapes. They're kind of like sideways, or kind of wide diamonds. Those eye sockets. And then the nose is just right under them. So I'm making just a tiny little line underneath. And then here on the face, there's a lot of, it's all about just kind of seeing the shapes that are there and fitting them in. For the shadow, I just trace it with a line, and it kind of breaks the face down into these shapes where it all kind of fits together. And I'm measuring the distance from the brow to the bottom of the nose, and then that's about the same distance to the bottom lip where the mouth is. If you measure out these proportions, you can check if you've got it right by going back to those methods of measuring with your pencil. Hopefully it's with a pencil, then you can erase and make changes. Again, I'm just using the pen so that it's more visible on the video. But I make the basic mouth shape. And it's helpful to look at how wide versus how tall that is on the face. You can see it's like a circle that's a little bit wider than it is tall. And then adding the teeth, of course, just making sure that they're in the right place. And then at this point, I just start adding detail. I've kind of traced over the lines where the shadows would be. Instead of worrying too much about that, I think it's easy just to draw those lines where the light and the dark are. And then, yeah, just going through and kind of fleshing out these details. The hard part is getting those proportions done and kind of mapping it all out. But once you've done that, you can go in. Here I'm going to do the hands. I kind of made them as mittens before, which allows you to have that basic shape, but then to go in, look exactly where they're separated. And there's only two parts that they're really separated. The pointer finger and the thumb there on that hand. Then go over to the other one and do kind of the same thing. I think this hand gets a little messy. So again, if you're using pencil, you can clean this up a little bit more than I'm able to do here. But it's still the same process. Don't get too hard on yourself about how it looks on the front end. Just try to measure out those proportions as best as possible. And then just kind of scan the subject to capture the details that you want. And always be paying attention to the subject. That's where all the information is. Use your eyes, not your head. And still just drawing lines where the shadows are. And I've already kind of made the darks, kind of colored them in. And And then for just the medium gray, I'm just going to do some lines, some parallel lines to kind of fill that in. And that's it. That's a pretty finished looking baby right there.
Hey everybody, Ashley here from Studio NPL, and I'm coming back at you with more Leave No Trace knowledge. So if you've missed my previous little episodes, I have gone over other principles from Leave No Trace. And to give a little background, the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics is an organization that helps us as individuals lessen our impact on the environment around us. So previously I have gone over the first 5 principles, and those are: number 1, plan ahead and prepare. Number 2, travel and camp on durable surfaces. Number 3, dispose of waste properly. Number 4, leave what you find and take only pictures. And number 5, minimize campfire impacts. And today we're talking about number 6, respect wildlife. So how can we respect wildlife? So regardless of whether you are at home watching birds or out in a park watching larger animals like deer or something else, we can learn through simple, quiet observation. So avoid approaching or touching or trying to pick up animals. So another thing that we can do is remember to travel in small groups when we're out in nature areas or at parks. So if you're in a group around 4 to 5 people, that is optimum. If you're getting larger than that and you're around like 10 people, don't be afraid to split the group into 2 or 3 so that we're able to minimize loud sounds and help keep from disturbing animals that are just trying to live and do their things. Also, if you encounter a sick or wounded animal, it's totally natural to want to help and intervene, but approach with caution. Sometimes when animals are stressed out, they might lash out and scratch or bite you, and we want to keep ourselves safe. So before approaching, do a little research and maybe contact a local game warden, or there's a really great organization near Nashville called Walden's Puddle, and they do rehabilitation for animals that are sick and just need some time to get better. So another really awesome thing we can do to remember how to give animals the space that they need so they can just go about their day is use the rule of thumb. So you take your thumb and you see an animal out farther away and we want to give it space, so hold your thumb out around at arm's distance and close one eye and see, does your thumb cover the animal? If it does, then we've got a good amount of space. If the animal's bigger than your thumb, we might want to back up and give it a little more space so it can stay comfortable. And that is the rule of thumb. I understand that this can be a lot to remember, so just try to keep in mind these 4 things. Quietly observe from afar, travel in small groups, no touching, and the rule of thumb. So thanks for listening, y'all, and remember to respect wildlife.